Hello, I'm Michael Tressler, and I'm a Senior Customer Engineer with Microsoft. I'm going to be presenting the Teams Rooms Foundation module entitled Choosing the Right Device for the Right Space. In this module, we're going to talk about what to consider when looking at your various meeting room spaces, learn about the different components that make up a Teams room system, and understand the environmental considerations when designing Microsoft Teams rooms. There are many things you'll need to consider when designing Teams rooms, everything from the size of the room to the type of furniture that is in the room. What sort of materials are in the room? Are the walls made of glass, which will reflect sound? How bright or dark is the room? There are many different room sizes, ranging from huddle and small rooms to medium and large sized rooms. And in each room type, you'll have to make decisions on where to place cameras and microphones. What kind of field of view should the camera have? How are you going to run cables to the table and to the monitors and displays? What kind of acoustics and lighting are in each of these different size spaces? As you can see, Teams Room supports large spaces like multi-purpose rooms and even executive boardrooms. If you look at the executive boardroom in the right picture, if you look at the ceiling, you'll see ceiling tiles are used for the microphones. So you have many options of where to place microphones, where to place cameras, complete flexibility depending on the requirements of a space. On the left, we see a small focus room. This is a great place for Teams rooms, be it a collaboration bar or the full Windows-based Teams rooms. On the right is a different situation. You'll note that there's no conference table. This is the type of environment that is great for Surface Hub. As there's no table in front of any of the chairs, people can get up and walk directly to the Surface Hub to interact with it. By putting tables in place, people may feel hesitant to walk around a table or climb over a table to get to an interactive device like Surface Hub. So be sure, when going with Surface Hub, that the room is designed to encourage interactivity with the device. Here we see three different room sizes, small, medium, and large. Some have single displays, some have multiple displays. You'll see in the large meeting room there's a whiteboard, so there's a chance to make that a content camera enabled room. The camera is obviously important in a conference room or in a meeting space. You have to decide how well can that camera you choose handle the lighting. Do you need pan, tilt, and zoom, or can it be a static camera? The microphone array is important in picking up the voices of the attendees. You can decide if you want the microphones to be on a table or ceiling-based. One advantage of ceiling-based microphones is it doesn't pick up vibrations as people tap on a table or hit their pen against the table. So there are advantages to ceiling room microphones in that they do a better job of avoiding vibrations due to people bumping into the table. We'll get an example later of the detail of camera field of view, but the field of view is important. The wider the field of view, the less depth the camera can do very well. The narrower the field of view, the deeper into the room the camera can look. Cable management is important. You don't want people to move the center of table console and pull cables loose. You also need to be able to run cables discreetly in walls or through floor covers, underneath tables, and in various different locations. Acoustics are very important. The more glass and plastic in a room, the more vibrations there will generally be. So keep that in mind when designing, that maybe you need to add sound dampening to a room. Lighting is also very important. You want to make sure that the remote attendees get a good, clear view of the attendees inside the meeting space. Here's some general guidance on audio peripherals, on the distance from the microphone to the attendee that is speaking. So you see in the first line, a focus room might have 2 to 4 people, and you want to make sure that the microphone is no more than 1.5 meters away from the attendee. And then as you get into larger rooms, the distance increases. Now, this is just a guideline. Depending on the equipment you purchase, can change these values. We don't have ceiling mics in this example, and ceiling mics can often cover an entire room. When looking at microphone coverage, make sure you design microphone coverage appropriately. In the small room, the microphone appropriately covers the entire room. You can see the blue circle clearly envelops all 5 seats at the table. However, if you look at the medium and right drawings, you can see that there are overlaps between the microphone coverage range and certain seats at the tables. It is possible that the people sitting in these seats, if they were to lean back or push their chair back slightly, may not be heard very well by the microphone. So in this situation, you may need to add a 4th microphone, or you may need to consider ceiling microphones or different microphones that have a larger radius. Work with your OEM vendor to select the correct microphones for the correct space. So what are the components that make up Teams rooms? We've already alluded to a few throughout this training. The center of table touchscreen console is the device that users interact with when joining and managing a meeting. There are many different form factors. Some have compute modules built in, some have swivel, some do not, some are tilted, some lay a little more flat. The choice you make from the vendor will dictate what the center room console looks like. Keep in mind that when users say the Teams Rooms is or isn't working, they're probably talking about the console. They're unaware of the compute module, the microphones, the speakers, even the displays. When they say Teams Rooms isn't working, they're going to mean the console. Much like when my mother says her computer doesn't work, she doesn't mean the actual box underneath the desk, she means the monitor. If the monitor isn't working, the whole computer isn't working. The compute module, there are several different vendors that provide compute modules. Several of the Teams Rooms vendors resell different compute modules from different vendors. So a Teams Rooms from a given vendor could land within a Lenovo, an HP, or even an Intel compute module. The compute module is what runs Windows 10 Enterprise IoT. You'll note that in many of these pictures you can see a lot of USB ports, power ports, network ports. All of the devices in Teams Rooms will eventually connect into the compute module. Cameras are an important part of Teams Rooms environment, and you'll see there are many different options for different environments. Some are all-in-one. For example, this one from Poly has the microphone and speakers built in, as does this one from Logitech. Here are content cameras, and then other ones have pan, tilt, zoom, multiple cameras, different configurations depending on the requirements of a room. You'll need to consider the field of view and any other features like auto zoom that are needed in a space. Much like we did with audio, here are some examples of camera field of view. You'll notice that this 90-degree field of view may not pick up these users if they lean back or stand up behind their chair. Here we have a wider field of view for the same table. You'll note now that these chairs can lean back, or even some could even stand and still be in view of the camera. So in this example, we see that a 90-degree field of view isn't as good as a 120-degree field of view. In this example, we see the 120-degree field of view works well in this sort of a table arrangement. If people were to pull back, they'd still be an optimal view of the camera. Similarly, the 90-degree camera field of view works great for this long table. No matter where anyone were to stand, sit, or lean back, they'd be in the optimal view of the camera. We've already talked about content camera, and we've already seen this video if you've watched all the modules. But there you'll see the content camera properly frame the marker board, and then still show all of the drawings on the marker board even though someone has walked in front. How does the magic whiteboard work? Well, currently, as this is being recorded, there are 2 cameras that support content camera. The Logitech Brio and the Logitech C930E. Refer to docs.microsoft.com in the Teams Rooms section for additional cameras that may be certified over time. Here are some examples of the preferred whiteboard sizing of how large the whiteboard should be for the content camera to properly pick up the images. Note that the whiteboard should be white and not black or green. If you have a whiteboard that is the entire length of the wall, the camera will not be able to show the whole thing. Note that here, above these metrics, the camera simply crops the whiteboard and just does not show other parts of the whiteboard. The recommendation here is to take colored tape, such as painter's tape, and tape an outline of the field of view of the camera directly on the whiteboard. This provides two advantages. One, this helps the content camera frame the whiteboard as it can tell where there is a border. Perhaps more importantly, it will let someone who's drawing on the whiteboard know if they're about to draw outside of what the camera can see. If they were to draw on the whiteboard outside the painter's tape, the camera won't show it, so they'll be encouraged to continue drawing inside the frame. This is the content camera field of view and then the distance from the camera. The content cameras that are currently certified are in this 90-degree area, so use this row when sizing the content camera distance from the marker board. Here we see two views of whiteboard placement. This is a straight-on view. We'll notice that the content camera here is hanging above the marker board, most likely from the ceiling. And we can see the distance of how far it can reach. And here is a side view where the content camera is right here and looking directly at the whiteboard. So in general, these content cameras will hang from the ceiling in order to stay out of the way. And then they're hanging off the wall at the appropriate distance based off the table on the previous slide. Audio is crucial to a Teams Rooms meeting so that you can hear what's going on. As you can see, there are many options, everything from bars that could hang below a display. You can also see there are microphone panels that hang from the ceiling listening down. So you have many options, and work with your vendors to decide which microphones and which speakers work best for your spaces. As we did with cameras and microphones, we also have examples showing the radius of the speakers to the users. All of these are in pretty good shape. If these users were to push back, they may hear less than optimal audio, but there is pretty good coverage in all of these examples. Here are two examples where coverage may not be very good. This user is already outside the optimal zone for the microphones. Now, if they were to lean back or even stand up, they'd clearly be in a bad area. Same goes with these two. So work with your vendors to make sure you get the correct microphones and place them appropriately. Which displays should you use? There are many different display options, everything from monitors hanging on walls to projectors. Make sure that the displays are sized properly for the space. 4K displays are supported, but Teams will only show up to a 1080p image. When should you use a single monitor versus dual monitor? A single monitor is good primarily for small rooms, while dual monitor is great for large rooms. In a dual monitor situation, one of the two monitors can be touch enabled to support interactive inking. You can also use a touch display with a single monitor. What are the requirements for a touch screen? Any monitor that works with Windows 10 will work with Teams Rooms. You may need to go into Windows settings and verify that tablet PC settings are configured correctly. In this example, we see that we have a full Windows Touch support display connected. However, monitors that support a lower level of touch support will also work. There's some questions to ask when reviewing displays. Do you need to mount the displays on the wall? Are all the walls glass? In that case, we can't mount on the wall and we'll have to get creative either with a projector or purchasing a stand to hold the display. If the room already has existing displays, make note of the make and model and make sure the connectors on the existing displays will work optimally with Teams. With cables and extenders, always be certain you're using cables and extenders that work to spec with the OEM equipment. For example, if the OEM equipment dictates that Category 6 cabling be used, use only Category 6 cabling. If you use something like Cat5 or Cat5e just because you have it laying around, you can expect that there will be issues with the audio, video, or other parts of the system. The OEM manufacturers have specified the cabling requirements, and it is in your best interest to match the requirements. Make sure that the cable runs you have are within specifications of a given cable. If not, you'll have to use an extender, though not all technologies support extenders, such as USB 3.0. When buying cables, make sure that the connector will fit into the compute module or the console display. Often, some cables will have large connectors, and then putting two connectors next to each other physically won't fit. So if you are going to purchase your own cables, purchase one, make sure it fits correctly before you purchase many more for the rest of your rollouts. Connection locking capabilities are nice because it'll do one of two things. One, it'll secure the cable from theft, which can happen. It'll also help prevent cables from accidentally being pulled loose. So some HDMI cables have been engineered to require extra force to pull the cable loose. So you may want to consider using those cables over cables that have more traditional HDMI connectors that can be pulled loose more easily. Here on this table is a summary of the room size and camera field of view and mic radius and all of those things. If you'd like to keep an eye on this slide, pause the presentation, but I will not be going into detail on this slide. It's there for your reference. So when reviewing your rooms and spaces, what should you look for? What is the goal of this room? Will cables need to be run on top of the floor? Is there a physical whiteboard? Does the room have any apparent ambient noise issues, such as a loud air conditioning unit or a refrigerator in the room? Do you need to control external devices, such as lowering shades, lowering a screen, turning on a projector? So do you need to tie in with existing room controls? Can the walls support the display weight? Are there any acoustic issues? Is the room all glass? So all of these attributes will need to be considered to help you choose the correct Teams rooms for the correct space. If working with the system integrator, take photos of everything. Even if you're not working with a system integrator, take photos of everything. This becomes important documentation over the life cycle of the room. If you need to send someone to a room, you can tell them, hey, this is the model. The center of table console is here. We have ceiling tiles, all kinds of things you can get from these photos. You may not be able to visit every meeting room that you're going to outfit with Teams rooms. As such, make sure a coworker or vendor takes all the available photos that they can of that room, showing everything. And by everything, we mean everything. Under the table, on top of the table, a look at the ceiling. This will give you an idea of how you can run cables, if you're going to need extenders, if you need to secure the cables tightly, where you're going to get power, if you can put things in ceiling. And again, photos of everything, of the floor, behind the monitor. If there's an existing display, take a photo of the display make and model so that you can look up to make sure it has the right connectors to match with the Teams Rooms equipment. In summary, Teams Rooms can fit any size meeting rooms, from the smallest room to a large classroom environment. Take inventory of everything in a room: desk, power location, cabling options, acoustic noise, light, everything you can, and document all the rooms in the same standardized way. Understand what the radius is for microphones, speakers, field of view for cameras as you design and document your Teams rooms.